I feel that our company excels with people relationships, and that is something that I'm very, very proud of. The industry is always about people. The commodity is houses, the business is people. Haven Property Management commenced in the year 2000. We have a lot of local knowledge. We know everything that's local, and also people know us. We have been there for many years, so that results in us having proven systems and proven record.
Haven Property Management seeks to forge trustworthy, long-lasting relationships with all our clients. That's where we're endeavouring to be. We've built the trust, we are demonstrating our expertise and knowledge, we are spending their money wisely, but we are also enhancing their assets.
I think they just have a much more personal service. We've just always had a really good relationship with them, and they've never let us down yet. And I think they go beyond the call of duty because they do notice things that other agents might not notice. Haven's sort of more picky about the way our properties are looking, which is exactly what we asked for.
We told them that we have high expectations because we make sure that all our properties are in pristine condition.
I know exactly how a landlord feels, being in that situation myself. I can understand their fears, their uncertainty about trusting their asset to someone independent, but we go a long way to try and allay those fears. Honesty, trust, knowledge, expertise and communication. These factors are paramount, and we endeavour to put the owners at ease by allowing them to see how we operate in all those aspects.
It's a hugely rewarding job, and it's a very, very challenging job as well. There's a lot of conflict, and it's not for the faint-hearted. And my background, you probably tell I'm not from these shores. I came over originally in the mid-90s, where I got the opportunity to play rugby in a place in Southland called Lumsden. Anybody from Lumsden? Really?
Yes, my son was born here.
Really? Right. Now listen to me. Look, this was in '95. If it happened today, I wouldn't have done it. Because you do street view and you realise how small the place was. But when you're from the UK, if you're on the map in the UK, you're thinking 30, 40,000. And that's what happened to me. I thought, well, there it is, it's on the map, there's a railway line, that'll be sweet. I got there and I was like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do here for 6 months? There started a love affair with New Zealand, which has not stopped. And I went home, took a couple of New Zealand lads back with me who wanted to play rugby in the northwest of England. Met my wife who's from Manchester, we got married, said let's go to New Zealand for 12 months. And that was 18 years ago, and we've got 3 kids, live in Wellington, and this is home. And we're now New Zealand citizens, so you know, I still have to confess that I support the British Lions in England when they're over here, but other than that, this is home. Now, I started out in property management 13 years ago. It was completely different. It was kind of a bit of an add-on to real estate companies. It was kind of like, you know, when we first went into it, and this was in the manner of £2 to north. And the vision of property management back then was that it's an add-on for the real estate. That's what it was. That you made money from selling the houses. No one wanted to manage, no one wanted to deal with the tenants. You used to have, basically, it was an industry run by blue-rinse, 60-year-old chain-smoking dragons. It was that type of industry. And that's nothing against the people who worked in it. They weren't given the training, they weren't given the supports, they weren't given the resources. But things changed. Things changed dramatically in 2008. Now, what happened in 2008? GFC. There was another thing that happened in 2008 as well. Property management got left out of the Real Estate Act, and it became deregulated. So we saw in this moment a lot of real estate companies, because of the GFC, struggled. At the time, you had interest rates which were quite low and they just went up. And houses just couldn't sell. And a lot of real estate companies really struggled. And they're looking around, how the hell do we... And then they see property management. Then all of a sudden, they become experts at it. You know, from being this little add-on, it started to become an integral part of the business. But as the industry was left out and got deregulated, and then anybody could charge a letting fee, because there was only real estate institute companies who could charge a letting fee back then anyone could charge a letting fee if you operated as a company. We just see this explosion of property management companies. And I'll come on to that and the ramifications, and it doesn't generally have a good reputation in the media. It's an easy, you know, because there's conflict. As a property manager, you're always dealing with conflict. And there's always somebody grumbling. But we're now at a change, I think, in housing and in an environment which we've never seen before. Well, we have seen before, and I'm going to show you. But not for a generation. Now, I did a little bit of research. I think there's lots of lessons to be learned from history. And this Labour government have got strong views on housing. Some good, some bad. We also have a Prime Minister who, in my opinion, not the old bugger, the lady's going to take over again at midnight. She's an environmentalist. I think she's very much an environmentalist. And I think that we're going to see future landlords become more, and I'm not saying that past landlords weren't, but we've got a future generation coming through who are going to be more socially aware of the impact on housing on the environment. And she said from the outset in her election campaign that the environment is her, you know, her nuclear generation. It's this generation's nuclear moment. And if you go onto the website of Labour, that housing was the #1 priority. So one of the things that they want to instigate is healthy housing for everybody in New Zealand. We're going to see radical changes. Now, this isn't here to scare you or whatever. It's just to prepare you for what's coming. You may have seen in the news recently all the stories about there's not going to be enough time for all the insulation companies to insulate the properties. And there's not enough of them. So we're going to end up, by July 1st, 2019, with literally thousands of rental properties facing, they shouldn't be able to be rented out because they will not meet the Residential Tenancies Act. And landlords will be facing $4,000 exemplary damages for each property which isn't insulated. We've also got Mr. Twyford, who actually, he was on front of me on the plane this morning. He's coming over to speak at an aviation conference, and he's speaking at the Real Estate Institute conference on Friday. And he's hell-bent on building 100,000 houses. Now, I don't know where they're going to get the builders to do this, as well as improve the current rental stock. But it's a radical change. And this video here shows that we've been there before.
One room's no place for a baby, but it's a room, isn't it? It's a dining room, it's a kitchen, it's a nursery, and a front hall, and a laundry, and a playroom, and a living room. It's a room.
The late Michael Joseph Savage said in 1936, we had more than 40,000 families needing homes. This was a major housing problem. Then a great building trend started to eat into this mass of homeless people. By 1939, we were building over 8,000 houses a year. But during 1940, house building had to give way to defense building. We almost ceased building houses. By 1944, victory was on the way. We could commence to build again. If we had not had to switch to war production, we would have had at least 22,000 more houses. Our housing problem would have been almost solved. Self-contained communities are being built on the outskirts of our cities. This project at Trentham is planned so the houses around the park, which will be sports grounds and schools and shops and theatres. Paths will link them all together. When the path meets a road, there'll be an overbridge. When the children go to school or we go shopping, we won't be dodging cars. And in our shopping areas, we'll find a series of courts, free of traffic, planned to group shops and offices and recreation. Our quiet streets will be close to the city through fast transport systems, but we will live with space about us and order and room for the sun to get in.
So we've been there before. There's a lot of similarities to that video as to what we're going through today or what this Labour government is trying to achieve. Now, I spent for my sorrows or my sins many a year living in Palmerston North. And Palmerston, great place, it is, it really is. And in Palmerston North is a place called Savage Crescent, named after Joseph Savage. You could well end up seeing Arden Avenue, Twyford Terrace, who knows, as we go through this huge planned state building. Now, renting, we've seen some radical changes in New Zealand in recent years, and not just in New Zealand, but around the world. And these are statistics sourced from a housing stocktake which is undertaken by economist Shema Beliakin, a lady, Philippa Howden Chapman. I met her recently. She did the rental monitor fitness that some of you may have heard about. No other gentleman, I forget his name, but he was the head of the Salvation Army. So a left-leaning committee to do a stocktake on housing in New Zealand, but there's some really good data and useful information in this booklet, which is downloadable. So we've got 37% of houses, dwellings, which are now rented in New Zealand, which is a significant increase in 1 year. Total, there's 580,000 rented properties within New Zealand, and there's another 100,000 which are occupied, but not by the owners. Total dwellings in New Zealand, 1.8 million, and the government obviously is planning on building another 100,000 houses. So we've seen a gradual increase, and I think we've got, home ownership at its lowest rate since I think the 1950s, since we saw that big impact on state housing and state house building. This is from the Labour Party's website, and this was, I got this just before the election, because you'd see that this party hell-bent. Housing was the #1 priority. And I'm not here to preach political views or whatever. I try and keep neutral, and I try and just critique out of both parties. But I will say that I felt National were probably a little bit asleep at the wheel when it comes to housing. But Labour are looking at making some significant changes to the Residential Tenancies Act. And they've got quite a few lobby groups on the side. One or two of them I think are a little bit dangerous. So what Labour are proposing, the 42-day notice, so if you sell a house and it becomes unconditional on periodic tenancies, that's got to go. It's got to be 90 days. And if you want to move back into the property, that's got to go. It's got to be a minimum of 90 days. No cause terminations. Now what that means is that if you don't like the tenant, you can't evict them, or you can't end the tenancy. Right? You've got to give a valid reason. And this is where I think a lot of private landlords may just come a little bit unstuck. Because sometimes they let emotion get in the way. Now, every single one of you in here, if you are a landlord, you have to understand you own a business. And you have to run it like a business. And if the tenant, if they're high maintenance or whatever, if they're paying the rent and looking after the property, who cares? That's the #1 priority. Source of income, they're looking after the property. Try and keep the emotion out of any decisions that you make as a landlord. It's probably the #1 mistake I see from landlords. They get fired up over something which is usually petty, and they'll make bad decisions. Limit rent increases to 1 a year. I don't see that as being an issue. There's a lot of hype saying that people are racking up rents every 6 months. Very rarely do I see that being the case. Give tenants and landlords the ability to make alterations, ban letting fees, and require all their properties to be warm, dry and healthy by passing the Healthy Homes Guarantee Bill. We'll touch on that in a minute. And we're seeing plenty of changes in legislation, and it's difficult, it's kept me busy. And it's very difficult for property managers to keep on top of all these legislation changes. And if there's one thing which I think our industry does suffer from, is that we've got property managers who aren't skilled enough in the Residential Tenancies Act. And that's where they get into trouble. That's the criteria, that's the foundation document of what we work to. So we've seen changes to the Residential Tenancy Amendment Bill number 1. That's your insulation. That's the one which has your insulation, which has to be on your tenancy agreements. You have to be on your tenancy agreements as the 1st of July, or any renewals that you're doing as well, any variations to your tenancy agreement. And as of the 1st of July next year, every rental property, there are some exemptions, but every single rental property will have to have insulation in the ceiling and on the floor. And it's got to state the level, condition, location, and good will not cut the mustard. You have to have the R value of the insulation on your tenancy agreements. Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill number 2. This is currently going through Parliament. This is dealing with the Osaki. Now, do people know about the Osaki case, which moved liability away from tenants for accidental damage? Well, they're redressing that, and rightfully so. But other things that's in this bill which is interesting is that you're going to have the landlord's insurance details on the tenancy agreements. Now, that's currently at its second reading. We've got the Healthy Homes Guarantee Bill. This is law. I'm going to touch on that in more depth in a moment. Residential Tenancies Prohibition of the Letting Fee Bill. We've had to deal with a bit of scaremongering with health and safety at work over asbestos. And there's more to come. Changes in notice period, security of tenant, and we've got Renters United to deal with as well. Why is this temperature significant to landlords? Yeah, that's what we think it's going to have to be. The indoor temperature. Now, the World Health Organization standards indicate that the indoor temperature should be maintained or maintainable at 18 degrees Celsius. Now, no. I mean, look, you go back 20 years and energy or heat up New Zealand will be put a sweater on. You know, now, we've got to deal with this. The reality is, there's a vast number of rental properties in New Zealand that will not get to that temperature unless you have really powerful heating going on, and they've got to set standards around heating. Now, failure to comply with this bill could see landlords facing exemplary damages of up to $4,000. This bill is now law, but we don't know what the standards are yet. We're waiting for the government, probably EECA, to come out with the standards around what constitute healthy homes and standards around heating. My message to landlords is start preparing your properties for this bill now, because what we've seen, or what we'll see, is just basic supply and demand. Everyone will scramble at the 11th hour to get the houses up to spec, which is what's happening now with insulation. There won't be enough tradespeople to go around to do this, and the cost of trading is just going to skyrocket. So do it now. Do it now. Yes, there's a cost to landlords, but overall, my own views, I do think long term it's going to benefit New Zealand overall. I think I've always believed that if you are a landlord, you have a social responsibility to provide warm, safe housing. You can make money as well. This bill has had royal assent. This is the section that we're looking at which affects landlords the most. Landlords must comply with these standards to have the ability to maintain indoor temperature, standards and outcomes around the following: heating. Right? So there's going to be standards of what heating you can use in a house. Insulation, ventilation, moisture ingress, draft stopping, drainage. All that's going to impact. Now, we don't know how far. Are you going to have to be able to keep the laundry to 18 degrees Celsius? I don't know. I don't think we'll come to that. But I certainly think bedrooms, living areas, kitchens, yeah. And the reality is in New Zealand, 60s, 70s, 80s housing, built not well. I come from the UK. Every property almost in the UK has central heating, double glazing, insulation. I remember my brother's house at Christmas, it's -6 outside. One was toast inside. That's the housing. Our housing has not been built to suit the conditions, and it has to evolve, and it will evolve. This is the aspect of when we're going to find out when this bill becomes law, when the standards are going to be. And you see here, you've got a window of between July 2019 and July 2024. That's when we're going to have to know when those standards, when it's going to be implemented, when it's going to be law. So you do have time You do have time. Then we've got this, the rental warrant of fitness, and we've had this instigated into, or we've had this implemented into Wellington by the Wellington City Council, and it's fair to say it's been an absolute abject flop. No landlords have taken it up, or hardly any landlords have taken it up. I met the lady and the team who've done this. Their intentions are good. There's nothing wrong with intentions. A little bit of it for me is a little bit nanny state. And I'm quite critical in aspects of it where it's a pass and a fail. So if you failed one, it's failed. Right? They may tweak it, but I think that this will become the foundation for what will be the standards around Healthy Homes Guarantee Bill. All rental properties will have to comply with this if they implement this as law. Now, what was one of the questions you were asked on the census about mould? Who remembers the question about mould on the census? Yeah? That is in the standards of that document. And that's why I think they put it in the census. Because they want to establish how many Kiwis are living in properties with mould. And they're going to enforce legislation to change it. So there's 29 different criteria. There is actually an app which they've made for this. And I suggest that go on to the App Store or Google, whatever it is, and download the app and trial it on your rental property or trial it on your own house. It's quite a good little app. Now, property managers will inspect properties every 3 months or whatever, and part of me thinks that it's almost intrusive going in that often. You know, what I think will eventually happen, that property managers will evolve from property managers into asset managers. That they'll be sitting down with landlords and saying, right, this is what income's going to come into your property. Let's look at doing this, investing this in here, we'll increase the rent here, we can do this here, and identifying hazards with the property and allocating funds to ensure that your property complies with health and safety. So that's that. And here, this is the criteria, this is part of the criteria of the Healthy Homes Guarantee Bill. Recognise that? They ask you that in the census. What it doesn't go on to, and this is where this falls down a little bit, is that what happens if it's the tenant creating the mould and how they live in the property?
They don't open windows.
And that has to be addressed. That has to be addressed. There is a very, very good tenancy tribunal case which I use teaching property managers down in Dunedin, where an adjudicator actually gives a really good summary of whose fault is mould, whether it's the landlord, whether it's the tenant. And this is where you get lots of grey in property management. The only time where it's black and white in property management, in my opinion, is rent arrears. You pay or you leave. Everything else, it can fall into an area of grey. Then we've got, so we've talked about this one. This is the Residential Tenancy Amendment Bill number 2. They've changed the key word in this. It used to have methamphetamine in there, and they've crossed it out. And it's now contaminant. A lot better. A lot better. Because contaminant could mean anything. Asbestos, mould, lead paint. It's gone on to the liability caused when damage is caused by a tenant. Good. So that means that we've got to be able to hold tenants accountable if they break a window or if they drop wine or whatever it may be. Now, in the past, we've not been able to do that because it's deemed as accidental damage. Unlawful tenancies will get pinged. Insurance details onto tenancy agreements, and tenants will be liable of up to 4 weeks' rent or for the excess on the insurance. And that's why the insurance has to be on the tenancy agreements. This is the bill. You can see what they've done. They've crossed out the words methamphetamine all the way through this. Failure to comply with this will be $4,000 in exemplary damages. Why is New Zealand taking such a hard stance on methamphetamine? I've been writing about methamphetamine for 2.5 years. I was one to meth test it. I got sucked into it years ago thinking, we've got a real problem here. You get these people scaremongering you and whatever, and they suck you in. And I got sucked into it. And I got suspicious about this industry probably about 2-3 years ago, when one high-profile individual within the property management sector, within the landlord sector, I saw him get on stage, tell every property manager you've got to get sick walking into all these houses, every house has to be tested. And then at the end of it, he said, I've just launched meth testing. It was flaming, scum. Then I did a bit of research and I saw all these companies just popping popping up everywhere. And it's a cowboy industry. Not everyone who works in this industry is bad. I've got to say that. I met some really good people. But it's an industry which was unregulated and left alone. How did it get to this stage? Well, they were based on these guidelines for laboratories in August 2010. Now, who's at fault around this? There's multiple people at fault, but ultimately you've got to look at Tenancy Tribunal, because they're the people who made the original decisions, and they opened the floodgates, which meant lots and lots of more cases were coming through. We've got the residential, we've got this piece of legislation that came through in October 2016, followed by this in 2017, which was the standards. And now we've just had the Gluckman report, who's basically slayed this industry overnight by saying it's now gone from 1.5 micrograms to 15 micrograms. And this is better for everybody, because in all the research I've done, I've never seen anybody get seriously ill, sick, or die from living in a property with low levels of meth contamination. Yet we see individuals get sick from living in mold-infested rental properties around New Zealand. And that's where the focus should have been. And we see companies using scaremongering tactics, meth contaminated 47%. Now, this really angers me, because what they're doing here is they're saying that anything which has a reading of 0.05 micrograms is deemed to be contaminated. How big is a microgram? A microgram is 1/1,000,000th of a gram. 1/1,000,000th of a gram. So if you've got something which is 0.05 micrograms, that's 500 millionth of a gram. We've been sold a dummy. And the only people which benefited from this are companies which have done testing and cleaning. And here you can see, as an example, this was a case which was done the day after the Gluckman reports. Kitchen at 19.3, tested on the 15th of October. But then another company comes in on the 9th of January 2018, kitchen 0.07. It's just a mockery. Finally, onto these guys, Renters United. Now, I actually went along to this fixed renting opening. I actually believe in forming dialogue with organisations like this, rather than jumping on social media and slagging someone off because we're all keyboard warriors. Let's go and talk to them and try and get some balance into their arguments. Now, these have quite a bit of political power. You know, members of the Labour Party were there, as was the lady who did the rental warrants of fitness. What do these want? They want stable homes. Now, stable homes, they're going to basically, what they want to happen is that if you have a rental property with a sitting tenant in place and you sell it, the tenant stays. You can't kick out the tenant. It's the tenant's home for life. Yeah, scary. Why would you buy a house? And what that will do is create a two-tier housing market. That's going to shut first home buyers completely out, because there's going to be no houses available for them to buy. So first home buyers are going to have a shortage of supply, prices go up, rental houses are going to just disappear, or the prices will drop. Now that won't happen. It won't happen. Other things that they'll look at is limiting rent increases in line with the Consumer Price Index. We've got the safe warrants of fitness, certificates of compliance, and they also want to have regulation of property managers, which we absolutely agree with. So it's not all bad in there. They also claim that Tenancy Tribunal favours the landlord. Now, we did a survey on this, and not for 1 minute I do not believe that. If anything, it favours the tenant. And to a degree, rightfully so, because if you're a landlord, you should know what you're doing. You choose to be a landlord. Now, we did a study on this, and these are the results that came out. And we asked property managers this, because property managers are the best people to give that opinion. Who does tribunal favour? Well, 72% the tenants, 1.8% it favours the landlord, and only 23% think it's fair. And that's where we have issues with, consistency in tenancy tribunal. The other thing that Renters United states is that renting is broken. Well, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I certainly think the Residential Tenancies Act is a living, breathing document. And it has to change and it has to adapt as we evolve. So we asked the question, is renting broken in New Zealand? This is the results. Minor modifications, lots of work, only 8% said it's completely broken, and 6% said it's fine. So my job is to try and give balance to all these arguments. So when I see something I don't like, I'll critique it. And that's what I do. Thanks a lot, guys. I've probably gone a little bit over my time, but you know, there's a lot to go through, and then try and do it in a short space of time. We'll be able to take questions and answers later on. And thanks for coming along.
I've been in this game, and I probably shouldn't call it a game, but I've been doing this now for about 30 odd years. Didn't start here in Nelson. I started in the Waikato, well, Auckland first, and then the Waikato. Returned to Nelson about 10 years ago, and I've been with Haven for about 9 years now, I think, when I first bought my first rental property here in Nelson. I don't like to disagree with your first speaker, but I have never considered myself a landlord. I've only ever considered myself an investor. He's the landlord, or Haven to me is the landlord, not me. I invest in a business. It's their job to look after my business for me. I'm one of these investors, I guess, that are quite happy to pay their fee as long as they do a good job. Sorry. I can honestly say that I am happy with the service I have received from Haven. If I wasn't, I would no longer be with that company. They've done me well. The service from the inspections through to the administration team, because sometimes I'm a little bit slack in keeping my accounts up to date, and I ring them up and I've lost a statement or whatever, because I do use accounting packages. I think that's important, but even the administration staff, I've never had any issues, re-inspections or anything like that. I guess the only other thing to say is I have started to change over. This sounds like a plug, but it's not. I have started to change over to the higher percentage of paying the fee to Haven, because then at least it's a set fee. It doesn't matter what it is. I know what it is month in, month out. It's just the set 10% or whatever it may be. Easier for my accounting skills and everything else moving forward.
Do you consider personally a better way of doing it in terms of fixing or floating it? I know there's a distinct advantage, but I just wondered if you did. I deal with Howard.
That's probably more in my realm.
Yeah.
If you look at floating rates, they're about 5.8%. I can give you a 0.5% discount on that. The fixed rates are around about 4.5%, 4.19 for 1 year.
I don't mean borrowing it now on those sums you're mentioning. I'm talking about a longer picture of borrowing money. In other words, the end result.
The end result of borrowing money.
Well, it costs money.
Most people don't have cash to buy a rental. And
They
if
don't.
you waited to save that cash, then inflation will push property prices up. So most people are going to borrow money to buy a rental. So
Well, where's the gain there?
where's the gain?
Yes.
Well, usually I tell people that a rental property is a business and you should set it up to make a profit. As running a business as a rental property, the biggest cost is your interest on your loan.
Yes.
So ideally, to make your business run at a profit, you need to get the debt down. When you get the debt down to a certain level, it can stand alone on its own, you can move on to the next project.
I sort of think it depends on where you're at in your investment chain, I guess, because when you're first starting out and income might be short, if you fix your mortgage, at least you know what your payments are going to be for the next 5 years.
Yep.
So if you're just starting out or only have maybe 1 or 2 properties,
Yep.
maybe fixing is the way to go, because at least it's set, you know what it is, you've got time to evaluate the market coming up when your loan's up for renewal. But then when you have several properties and you've got a bit of equity and income is not so scarce, let's call it, then you can say, right, let's start, it's only my personal opinion, but then let's start floating it, because hey, at the end of the year I might have 20, 30, 50, 100,000 K. I can whack it off the mortgage and carry on.
So-
So I think it varies a lot depending on where you are in your situation.
It depends on the person you're dealing with. So, like even buying a first home, whether it's not a rental or if you're buying a rental, it depends on people's personal income and their ability to pay down debt. Now, if you can't pay that debt down quickly, you're better off being fixed because the interest rates almost.
I think it's more related to the tax question that you pay or you don't pay, surely.
Okay, so if you're talking tax, are you saying if I've got a mortgage,
I'm saying the more you borrow, the better it is.
well, I say the other way.
Thank you.
Right? And that's one of my little things in here is I don't believe in negative gearing because that's like running a
Well, no,
business
it's
at a loss.
positive in the end. That's why I say you've got to look forward.
And so if you look at a $350,000 loan at say 4.5%, I think that costs you about $13,500 in interest. So that's an expense on your, when you go to see the accountant.
Which you can claim against, surely?
So sure, you can claim.
I'd like to ask them before. Sure.
Can you just elaborate on the ACC thing? I just would be pretty concerned because their bills can be pretty hefty. I've got a few properties for years and I've never dealt with them over it, never crossed my mind. Some years ago I was a courier driver for a few years and it wasn't until I finished that suddenly they caught up with me and slammed with these bills.
Yeah.
Could I expect that at some point?
Could you expect it? Look, possibly. When you file a tax return and you include your rental income in it, look, it's intuitive to put it in as passive, investment income. But when you get to a point where you've got multiple rental properties, inland revenue's view is that you shift from being passive to more active in terms of that activity, and so you're more in the nature of running a business of earning rental income across a number of properties, and so for that reason there is a change in how you report that income, and the changes is that it goes into sort of active or business income rather than passive investment, and that's the critical change that can once the tax return is filed and assessed, the information goes from inland revenue across to ACC for the purpose of determining whether there's any ACC bill to raise for that tax year.
If they want that income before, high income, low income, change of income, perhaps work someone on a different career path, those sorts of things to give you flexibility or just options. So, there's a lot more than just saying we'll go out and buy a property and we're going to put it in that name. You need to think beyond the immediate.
Is this it, Rob?
Yeah. Is it more advisable now to put properties out your own name into a company with tax and obviously it's going to 5 year.
Yeah. So it's going to depend on the area of circumstances. It depends on what owned myself. Does the bright line test apply to that? And it does. So unfortunately now, the days of being able to say, like, I'll just buy this property and then I'll make a decision, in a year or two down the track about whether I'm going to put it into a trust or some other entity is gone, without it triggering tax consequences. So yeah, it is worth having those discussions earlier, sooner rather than later.